Michael, back to it after the break. Looking forward to it?
Yeah, buzzing. I think everyone's excited. We want to, go against Stevenage, who are flying. So I think everyone's excited for the game. It's going to be a tough game. But yeah, everyone's really, really happy to get back going again.
First of all, what about your three internationals? Are they all back in the building, and what's the situation injury-wise?
No, not yet. We're still waiting on two to get back from where they've been. Ivan's back in the building and had a light training session today. Injury-wise, nothing to report, so we just got to look after them as they come back in, because obviously travel and playing games not so long ago. So no, touch wood, they're all good. We're just waiting for Dexter and Justin to come back in tomorrow, we hope.
And what about Conor McGrandles? Obviously the injury just before the break and missing out on the Exeter game. Is there better news of him?
Yeah, he's good. So he's had a full training week this week, which is great news. So he's good to go as well.
I seem to remember we talked 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. They all sort of merge after a while, don't they? But we were talking about the discipline record and the yellow and red cards, and I was thinking about it since that sort of moment. It feels like that's not been an issue. Was that a conscious conversation with the players to try and avoid it, or is it purely just how games run?
I think it's a bit of everything. It's a bit of balance. So it's conscious conversations to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. We've got a psychologist in the building as well that helps the players to understand that as a group. And I also think it was the nature of the games in some ways and how it fell. So you can't get too caught up in it, because sometimes it is football, and it felt like they were just coming really early for us. I also think there's elements of, as I always say, the refereeing starts to become a bit more realistic than the new rules and laws coming in and spending ages on those types of things. So I think it's a combination of things. I wouldn't say it's down to one thing. But like you say, it seems to be a bit more normal than it was at the start of the season.
And just talking about the Exeter game as well, have you squared that off in your head? Because I know I've talked to people at the club saying, look, the stats were fantastic, apart from obviously the most important stat in terms of scoring goals. Does it become almost one of those days, or do you actually say, no, we need to be more clinical and better in front of goal?
I think both. I think you're right. We need to be more clinical. We need to take our chances. I think when you have that many chances, goals, the old stat that goals change games. If you take the first goal in that game, I think that game looks very, very different, and we didn't. And in the end of it though, if we can't win it, we can't lose it, and we should have come out with a draw and frustrated. So I've not changed in that, but we've reviewed the game. That is football in some ways, but we can't have too many of them this season for sure.
We've had two bits of news from the club in the last couple of days. First of all, on the coaching side of things, just to take us through what that leaves you with now.
In Scott Fry?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great news. So obviously people knew the situation. He got tempted away, but he really believes in what we're doing here and wanted to stay, and that's great news for us. And that also gives us, an extra member of staff to focus on that. So we've got an amazing coaching team, amazing staff team here, and we want to keep progressing. One thing is we progress the team on the pitch, and off the pitch as well, we want to keep progressing the staff team, which we're always looking to do. I think we're in a really good place now with Scotty focusing on what he needs to, and David Priest, who's come in and been brilliant with the keepers. So we're in all good places as a technical staff and as an MDT staff, and now it's just making sure we keep focusing on winning games of football. I
guess two things out of that. Number one, it would suggest some financial support from the board, from the directors, to make sure that you can have that extra member of staff.
Yeah, I think that's always the challenge, isn't it? When you want another head count in the club, but they've supported it. How important the role is, and we've extended Scotty's role from just being set pieces into some more elements of the game that we think can get us gains in this league. And again, that's partly as a club keep progressing. It happens at all levels. I remember having playing against Man United with Leeds, and they had 9 analysts at one game. I'm not saying we're ever going to get to that stage, but we've got 2 brilliant analysts as well. So I don't think it's about having too many staff as well. I think we have to be conscious about that. But we definitely think there's gains to be had in having one more technical staff in the club.
And restart set pieces have always been important if you go back all the way through football, but it feels like it's become, if anything, a little bit more important. And I think the thing that feels like it's changed maybe in the last season or so has been kickoffs. It's become something you see very different. You see Arsenal, kicking for touch almost like rugby union at times. Yeah,
I think there's so many changes and things that happen in the game that offer different things, and kickoffs, throw-ins, dead balls, stop them starting situations wherever you can get on top. A throw in, they have a player off the pitch, so how do you be aggressive with that? There's loads of throws in games. There's not anything new, but I think people are shining a light on the restarts more. But I remember, 4 or 5 years ago when Bournemouth and other coaches were doing really clever restarts. So it's not nothing new, but what it is I look at them a lot with Scotty. We look at them together. but it's an important element of the game, and if you want to be the best at these elements, you have to shine a light on them, and that's what we're trying to do.
And then the news about Ben House signing a new contract. He strikes me as if it's possible to say a classic Michael Skubala player, I would say Ben House is that. I would imagine he's not difficult in terms of around the change rooms, not a high maintenance type of person. He doesn't come across that way, but he's also a bit like a Swiss Army knife. As a player, you can play him in several different positions.
Yeah, I think the worst is his jokes. He's got terrible jokes, but no, he's been, before my time, I think he's been sensational since he's come to Lincoln City. I knew about Ben House before even arriving to Lincoln because of what he can do, like you say, without the ball. And I think what the next thing he needs to add is more goals and assists, but I think they're in there. But he's been a great player for this club, and we're really pleased to get him signed on for longer, if you like, and he's happy, we're happy, and he offers so much to the team. I think the biggest thing I can say about Ben House is he's selfless. He always puts the team first no matter what, sometimes to his own detriment in front of goal. But I think if you want players in the team, you want them to put the team before themselves, and Ben House definitely does that.
Stevenage is probably the surprise for many people in League One. I don't think many would have had on their bingo card Stevenage being the league leaders when they come to play you, but they've had an exceptional season, just lost one game. Their defensive record is the best in the league.
I think they've probably grown into a team that is really solid and a really good footballing team. And I think sometimes there's a bit of badge bias, isn't there, in football, where you think, oh, Stevenage, the club, and it probably happens to us sometimes. But I have huge respect for what they've done. Alex has done a great job there, and you only have to look at Neil Banfield, the assistant, has got 300 games under Arsene Wenger. They know what they're doing, and I think what they've done really well is maximised how that group plays. Watched all the games this season already. In the window, I managed to watch every single game. So, they're a really strong team. They can really hurt you. There's a reason they're top with a game in hand. Is because they're solid and they can score goals. So I think this season they look more knitted together than ever, and it's going to be a really, really tough game for us. But we think we've got enough to beat them on the day, and we've got to be at our best for sure. And I think that's what they do really well, is if you're not at your best, they beat you. So we're going to have to be on it for sure.
And do you think to some extent they're an echo almost of yourselves? There's some similarities there in terms of making the most of what you actually have? I
think so. I think we're in some ways similar, in some ways different styles a little bit. But they're aggressive, they're front-footed, they make you defend the box. They're probably the best team in both boxes at the minute. They make it count where it counts, if that makes sense. But also they've grown, they've not made too many changes. So the group they've got is a few wise owls in there and know how to get wins at this level, and they've added a bit of quality to the group in midfield, I think, this season. So the recruitment's been really strong for them as well. So it's no surprise to me that they're up and around it. Like I say, you only have to look at Neil Bamford's record to know how good they are in a coaching setup as well. So the challenge for all these clubs, including us, is to keep going across 46 games, and we don't want them to keep going on Saturday, that's for sure.